Let's get some insights on the news that's shaping markets. For that, we want to welcome in Mish Schneider. She's the chief strategist over at marketgauge.com. Mish, I always love to hear from you. I love when we get the chance to talk. Okay, so I know you're looking at some of the different price action when it comes to the sectors. We've seen this strong run overall in the markets this May, especially, you put that in perspective, what we saw in April and the volatility that we experienced at the beginning of April to where we are now. This is one of the strongest Mays in decades. What are you seeing when you look at some of these sector-specific action? Is there any weakness under the hood that you're paying attention to?
Well, first of all, hi, Diane. Great to see you. Well, yeah, I mean, there's always things that aren't performing up to snuff, so I'm not trying to be any kind of an alarmist or indicate in any way I'm bearish. However, we do always have to look under the hood, especially if we're looking at the U.S.-centric sectors. So there are two right now that are at least underperforming, could potentially turn into a concern. One would be transportation. And as we know, while the consumer obviously is a big part of the GDP, we have to watch the trends of how things are moving in terms of freight and planes, the planes, trains, and automobile trade, I kind of call that. And we're not seeing it really doing what we would expect it to do if there was this sort of optimism about lower inflation and economic growth. The second, of course, would be the regional banks. And I like the regional banks as a pulse more than the actual big banks, because that's where you really see what the center of the U.S. is doing, the more rural communities, the smaller cities. They may not necessarily go to a Bank of America, they'll go to a more local bank. And that's also under some stress right here. Not alarming, but at least something to pay attention to, because we've seen this sector in particular create havoc, like in March 2023 when we had that debacle with the commercial banks. If real estate and commercial real estate has any kind of wonkiness in the future, you'll see it there. So that's to pay attention. But that's the glass half empty. If we go to the other side, of course, as you were just talking about with retail and beauty and also tech.
Yes. Yeah, Mish, I want to get into that actually, because I know you're paying attention to something, and I thought, look, our conversation about Ulta was a natural segue into chatting with you. You talk about the vanity trade, and you've mentioned that that's waking up and potentially becoming a mega trend. So what are you seeing, and what's your expectation here?
Well, I know that we heard a lot from Jenny, and she was absolutely right about the lipstick trade, sort of recession-proof. People are going to go buy makeup. It's still relatively cheap depending on the lines. And also interesting, Michael Burry put all his money into Estee Lauder, which I thought was incredible. But I'm also looking at it from a different way, and we talked about this a while ago, and that is the domino effect of the diet drugs. And I don't think that can be underestimated. Here's a perfect example. I actually just subscribed to Hulu to watch this show I wanted to watch, but I did it with the ads, right? Every other ad is about diet drugs and losing weight. And what they're depicting in this is some men, but mainly women out there all of a sudden feeling better about themselves. So they're wearing more makeup, they're taking care of their hair, they're buying nicer clothes, they're going out more. And that's where you have to look. So Ulta, Elf. I mean, Elf is like, that also did really well. And they're all about diversity. Obviously, Haley, what's her name? All of a sudden, her name is
Bieber.
Yeah, Bieber.
Right?
There you go.
Bieber. Yeah.
Not too, kind of famous. She's come out and they bought the Rhode brand, and I hear there's lines to get in to buy that stuff. Right now, Nu Skin all of a sudden waking up. That's something that Venus Williams was supporting. They have gotten through earnings, also doing very, very well. And I think, we have to look at Match.com and all of the different ways. Just watch the trends of people who have had weight problems their whole life and now have a new lease on life. And when you're talking about 38% of obesity numbers in this country alone, even if 1/4 of them start losing weight because of the drugs, and the drugs will become more affordable as time goes on, they'll go to pill form as time goes on, that's a consumer that's been out of the market coming in.
Okay, and they're looking for, well, look, Ulta has certainly been, it's outperforming today. It's a leader in the S&P 500 today. It's had strength year to date and year over year. ELF certainly playing catch up. But you mentioned the vanity trade here. Under the hood, fueling that, you see the diet drugs, the GLP-1s, et cetera. So what do you think about Novo Nordisk then?
Well, I like it a lot. It actually had bottomed out along with everything else in April, then gapped higher, and it's been sort of building a base. What I like about it is that it sort of has absorbed all the negative news. Anything political involved in tariffs seems to be out of the way. It's a huge company. It's been around for a long time. It was actually formed out of love, interestingly enough. The guy who was running Novo Nordisk met his wife who had health problems, and he actually came up with a drug to help her, and that's how this whole thing got launched. So I call it the love drug company. Over 70, if it can hold here, you're just showing a chart, I think that's good. I mean, obviously it has lots of upside potential. And what interests me about it mostly is it has very limited risk on the downside. And at this point in the market, I think that's what you want to look for. That's what happened with Ulta and ELF and Nu Skin. They were sort of sitting there with very low risk, and we can see the result of the upside potential.
Okay, and let's talk a little bit about the precious metals. A lot of people talk about gold, but you're paying attention to silver and you're bullish on silver. What makes you still bullish on it?
Well, a couple of things. Number one is there's a lot of comparison to what we saw in April 2025 to October 2022 relative to the gold to silver ratio. And in October 22, that spiked to about 95. And then in April, it spiked to like 107, which means, gold was really the flight to safety and silver was historically underperforming. So now all of a sudden that has flipped and we see that ratio coming down. If that ratio breaks, let's say 99, it's just slightly above that right here. And the dollar, which is definitely under pressure, continues to weaken. And we still have all the same problems we came into this year with: high debt, high government spending, now the tariff uncertainty. While inflation has seemingly come down, we do know, that could turn at any time, and there's certainly pockets of inflation we're seeing, particularly in food, which is not included in PCE. But more important, silver is an industrial metal, and it is in low supply. So if we get to $34 an ounce, I think that could be a good surprise for the markets. In the last 5 years, it's up over 94%, but people don't really talk about it much.
Okay, all right, Mish, we'll have to leave our conversation there for today. Happy Friday to you. That's Mish Schneider of marketgauge.com. Go follow her on Twitter. Her handle is @MarketMinute. Thank you so much, Mish.